Chris here, and welcome to my channel, and welcome to this week's reading vlog. So the theme of this week's reading vlog is going to be the Spoonies Readathon, and I'm very, very excited to be diving into that TBR. I will say that I've already finished one of the books on my TBR, and that's because it was one of the few that I had crossed over, and that was Mansfield Park by Jane Austen, and I was reading that for Read a Classic that features a disability because Fanny has chronic fatigue. So I read that last week. So if you'd like to know my thoughts on that, check out the previous vlog. As for the books I'm going to be reading this week, I have, I think it's Dead and Buried, which is for author who has a disability because Dahlia Donovan is autistic. Well, disability, mental health, that kind of thing. I need to read a book that features a disability or mental health rep or something along those lines that I relate to. So I will be reading Pierced Peony by Dahlia Donovan because the main character is autistic and I am autistic, so I relate to that. I have to read a easy to read format, so I'll be reading Dead and Buried for this because I have the physical book and the audiobook, and that's the easiest way for me to read. I have to read a comfort read, so I'll be reading Totally Pawstruck. I have to read a nonfiction. So I'm going to read The Girl Who Thought in Pictures, the story of Dr. Temple Grandin. This is a picture book featuring Temple here, and she's autistic. So there's my autistic rep in a nonfiction. And then booktuber rec. So I have to recommend booktubers who have disabilities. Again, I'm going to mention Naomi. I know there's a few others, but I don't always know who's out about it, and I don't always associate that kind of thing with their videos. I tend to associate books with people. So I only remembered Naomi's because she mentioned it in her announcement video, because when I think of Naomi, I think of like Anne of Green Gables, and especially historical fictions, because I buddy read some of those with her, and the Enola Holmes series by Nancy Springer, because I buddy read most of those with her as well. So as you can see, I tend to associate booktubers with the books they read more so than necessarily personal anecdotes. So I don't know any off the top of my head. And again, like I said, I'm also in a few Discords, so some of it might not be public knowledge, so I don't want to say too much more. Another thing we have to do is research a disability, and I actually have this. It came in the library. So it's Unmasking Autism by Devin Price. And I'm very, very much looking forward to checking this out because I would like to know more about autism in general. As once I figured out I was autistic, I'm very into learning more information about it because it is definitely something that helps me understand how my brain works. And I found that having information is the best way for me to understand something. Like my anxiety was an extreme struggle until I took a basic psychology course in college. And I had to write my final paper on any topic I wanted, and I wrote on the different kinds of anxiety disorders because prior to that course, I didn't understand that there were different kinds. I had just been told, well, you have an anxiety disorder. Like you have anxiety. So I assumed anxiety disorders were like universal. There's just you have anxiety or you don't. But there's multiple different kinds. And like, I didn't even think about the fact that, like, for instance, my mom is claustrophobic. That is technically an anxiety disorder because it falls under specific phobia. And I would have never associated that with the way my anxiety works. But I've learned, like, I have a bunch of different kinds and they each have their own sets of triggers. And it was learning all of that that allowed me to start to get control of it because I started to figure out what situations were my triggers and then how to work around them or how to avoid them if I was having a really, really bad day, if at all possible. If I knew what was causing the anxiety, I could manage it better. But because I didn't know there were different kinds, I didn't realize how many different triggers I had. So I found with that information was power. So I'm hoping this will definitely enlighten me and give me a little bit more power to understand how my brain works and have a better understanding of how to make my life function with the way my brain works, as opposed to having to try to make my brain function in a way it doesn't want to fit in with the rest of the world. So we'll see with that. Now, like I said last week, if you've watched that vlog, there is no way that's all I'm going to read this week. It's very rare that I read that few books. So, other books I will probably be reading this week. Promise of Blood, because I'm on page 266, so I will probably finish this week. I might get back to the Bone Season, because I keep reading this in chunks and then putting it down. Swearing I'm going to go back to that and then not doing it. I'm on page 265. I'm enjoying it. I don't know why I keep putting it down and walking away. Probably not, but I am technically like 60 pages into the last argument in Kings, and I would like to get back to this. I'm like 20 pages into Pleading for Mercy, so we'll see if I can get back to this. It didn't really hook me, so it's not necessarily a priority, and I don't know. We'll see if I get back to it before I have to return it to the library. One book I definitely will be reading this week is The Length of a String, because Desertathon has these bonus prompts. Like, that was my focus last week, and I read through my entire Desertathon TBR, but it has bonus prompts. So, one of the bonus prompts is 5-star prediction. This is my last 5-star prediction for round 8. I would really like to get that video out, considering, you know, I've already started reading and filming round 9. So this is the last one I have to read, so I hope to get to this week. And then, I don't know, other stuff. We'll see. It's all going to depend on what I feel like reading and what I need to get to that's not on my Fox and Wood TBR, which is next week's vlog, or my Final Book Support Group TBR, which is the final, like, 4-day weekend in May. So, that being said, none of these books are going to read themselves, so I'm going to go read, assuming I can convince some of the cats to let me get in my bag, because there's several of them, and I will check back in with you in a couple of days to let you know how I'm doing. I thought I would check in, as I've read quite a bit. So we'll start with the books I've read for the readathon first. And first up, I read The Girl Who Thought in Pictures, the story of Dr. Temple Grandin, which was a nonfiction featuring someone who is disabled or has a mental health issue or is dealing with an invisible illness, etc. And I gave this book 5 stars. It's a picture book that depicts the life of Dr. Temple Grandin. And it was really, really cute and informative in a very simple way to explain how Temple works, like how Temple's brain kind of processes things, because Temple is autistic. And then it has, at the end, something with a little bit more information on Temple and her life that isn't, you know, the simple pictures and verse of the picture book. I really, really enjoyed this. I think it is a really simple, easy introduction to the concept of somebody being autistic and how their brain processes information. And yeah, definitely think I would recommend this to the little ones in my life. Then I read Dead in the Garden, for book written by an author who fits the overall category. And I picked that because Dahlia Donovan is autistic. You're going to see a lot of autistic rep in my TBR. But I gave this book 4.25 stars, and it's following this couple, Valor and Bish. And Bish is autistic, and they go out into their garden one day, and there's a body there. And Bish becomes the #1 suspect, and Valor kind of has to put the pieces together to figure out who is trying to frame his partner, while also being terrified because Bish is dealing with all of this while also being autistic. And it ends on a cliffhanger, and from what I've heard, it's a trilogy, and really it's like 3 separate sections to this overarching mystery, which isn't really common in the cozy mystery genre, but I kind of liked how it worked, because I like the idea that they're all going to tie together, and that they figured out some of the pieces in this one, and they'll probably figure out more pieces in the second one before wrapping everything up in the third one. I like that it had autistic rep, and it was interesting to see how that kind of played out and played a factor in the story, and I'm hoping we get more of that in book 2. But I thought this was a really quick, easy read, and I quite enjoyed the mystery aspect and trying to piece things together with Valor while also worrying about Bish. So we'll see how book 2 goes whenever I get around to it. Then I believe I read this next book for comfortable read, and that would be Totally Paw-Struck by Sophie Ryan. I'm giving this book 4.25 stars as well. This is, I believe, the most recent book in the Second Chance Cat mystery series, and in this series we follow Sarah, and she ends up solving mysteries with the help of a group of elderly individuals who are like family to her, who kind of work out of her secondhand shop, and they take on cases as they work as like a private detective agency group. In this one, Sarah stumbles across a woman she knows from the community, Stella, who happens to be standing over a dead body while holding what appears to be the murder weapon. And Stella claims she did not do it. So Sarah ends up getting roped into looking into the case, as she can't imagine that Stella would have done it either. So I quite enjoyed the mystery and trying to puzzle out what happened. Funnily enough, completely unintentional, if memory serves, there is an autistic character in this book. Very minor, very side character, but completely unintentionally, I managed to pick up a cozy mystery for this readathon that is specifically dealing with disabilities, mental health, invisible illnesses, etc., that happen to have rep in it, however minor. So that was a unexpected surprise. I really enjoyed how this book played out, and getting to see Sarah kind of puzzle through things and start to eliminate people. And there were a lot of people with some really good motive, and it was really cool to see her kind of put the pieces together, and I really enjoy the personal aspect of this one. And this one left on a cliffhanger, and I need the next book, because whoo, some interesting stuff goes down. And then in the midst of 2 books for said readathon, I'm reading Read and Buried for Read a Book in an easy to read format, because I'm reading it while listening to the audiobook, and I'm on page 134. This is the 5th? I don't know. The next book in the Lighthouse Library Mystery Series, and we're following Lucy, who lives in a lighthouse that houses the library that she works at, and they're doing some, I don't want to say renovations, that's not the right word, but like there was some building damage that we found out in the previous book, and they're kind of like shoring that up. So there's construction going on, and a box gets unearthed that apparently seems to have maybe some sort of treasure map, and Lucy returns home one night to find a dead body in her boss's office, and the treasure map is missing, and she's kind of gotten roped into looking into it. So I'm enjoying this one so far. I had to force myself to put it down because I knew I had too long in it to read last night, and I needed to get some sleep. But I'm enjoying where this one is going. I'm very curious about this map and whether it turns out to actually be a treasure map, and to learn more about the contents of the box that they found, and to figure out who decided to take matters into their own hands to steal it, because they've got some very juicy suspects. So definitely enjoying this one, and enjoying the easy to read format of being able to have it read to me while I read along. And then the other book that I'm reading for research a disability or mental health, etc., is Unmasking Autism by Devin Price, and I'm on page 129. So definitely making my way through this. There's a lot of information to take in, and it's absolutely fascinating because you're seeing how different being autistic can present in different people, because it is known in some spaces as like the autism spectrum, because it really is a spectrum, because everybody is kind of different. I don't think that there's going to be 2 people who are autistic who present in exactly the same manners, like completely 100% across the board. So it's interesting to see all of these different personalities and the people we're learning about and the way they're similar and the way they're different and kind of how I relate to them, because there have definitely been some things in here that have made me go, huh, maybe that wasn't my anxiety. Maybe that was the fact that I'm autistic. Like, one of the stories is literally about somebody who's autistic who really struggled when they got to junior high because of all the transitioning and upheaval, and like they'd get comfortable in the classroom they were in, and then the bell would ring and they would have to move, and by the time they got comfortable again, the bell would ring and they'd have to move, and you can see how that would disrupt somebody's day. And I struggled when I got to junior high massively. That is when I stopped going. I could not handle it. I always assumed it was the anxiety because I was diagnosed with anxiety. But now I'm wondering if all of the switching classes and the noise and the trying to fit in socially when I just was not good at that, caused the anxiety. Like, I was anxious because of the fact that I was autistic. I wasn't anxious because I had an anxiety disorder, period. It's absolutely fascinating to see some of these kind of puzzle pieces slot into place for me. So really, really enjoying my read of this, and very glad that I have picked it up and looking forward to finishing it and seeing what else I can relate to throughout the process of reading this. Well, that's all that I've read for the readathon. I've read some other stuff, so I thought I'd share that with you as well. First up, I've read The Length of a String, and this is a 5-star prediction, so you'll have to watch my 5-star prediction wrap-up vlog for that, like my thoughts. But I also wanted to mention that I'm reading this, read this for 5-star prediction for Desertathon, as it was the first bonus prompt, so I can check off that I completed that one. Speaking of 5-star predictions, in the next round, I think that one's for round 8, this is for round 9, I'm reading Killers of a Certain Age, and I'm on page 238. I have about an hour left in the audiobook of this, so this will be in a completely separate to this vlog, where I talk about this round of 5-star predictions, which is, like I said, this is round 8, this is round 9, I believe. So, just wanted to let you know that I'm almost done with this. I finished The House That Lou Built, which I was reading for TBR Knockout with a book that featured a mom, and there's technically multiple moms in this, because we're following a young girl named Lou who wants to build a tiny house on land that her dad left her, and her dad died before she was born, and her mom is struggling because they live with her grandma, and her mom share a room, and her mom is looking at jobs in another state, and Lou is heartbroken and does not want to go there and thinks if she can build this tiny house, she can convince her mom to stay. So we have, obviously, Lou's mom. We have Lou's mom's mom. It's got Filipino family wrap, so we see a lot of aunties, and they're obviously moms, so we see, like, their relationships a little bit with their cousins. Like Lou's cousins, we see her aunts and her cousins' relationships. So you've got moms there. Like, there's just a lot of moms in this book, which was completely unintentional. I just did it for the one mom. I ended up giving this book 4.25 stars. I really enjoyed the story and seeing Lou's journey and her struggling with kind of unresolved grief over losing her dad and wanting to prove to her mom that she's capable of building this tiny house and having this vision, and the insane family vibes. I love how important family is to Lou and, well, to her mom and to her grandma and her aunties and all of that. Like, it's just got a lot of really good family vibes, and I really enjoyed getting to see Lou's journey and seeing what Lou managed to accomplish throughout the story. I also finished The London Seance Society, and I decided to give this book 3.5 stars. It wasn't my favorite. In this one, we're set in 1873, and we're following Lena Wicks, whose sister was murdered, and she's working with this medium named Vaudeline in the hopes that she can find out what happened to her sister, and her sister was really into the idea of seances, and Lena is a skeptic, and Vaudeline gets called back to London to help do a seance for the leader of the London Seance Society. And Lena kind of accompanies her because originally she was going to learn how to hold a seance so that she could find out what happened to her sister, because Vaudeline wasn't going to go back to England. However, when she does, she's like, this is perfect. You can just do the seance yourself. And she ends up tagging along, and they kind of uncover some mysteries going on with the London Seance Society. And I don't know, it didn't click with me. It wasn't a bad book. Like, I didn't hate my time with it. I felt some things were very, very, very obvious. I didn't connect with Lena and Vaudeline, I think, the way I probably should have if I was going to give it a 4-star rating. It felt a bit predictable. I kind of saw where things were going, and I mean, it was a quick read. I got through it pretty quickly, but it wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't a bad book, and I can see it being one in a few months that I won't remember anything that happened in. So 3.5 stars feels fair. And then the last book I finished since I spoke to you is Promise of Blood. And I gave this book 4.25 stars. So this involves 3 POVs. We have the Field Marshal Tamis, who is a powder mage who just helped to lead a coup to take out all of the nobles and the aristocrats. We follow his son, Daniel, who is a very well-known powder mage in his army. And then we follow Adamat, who's a retired police inspector who is being squeezed from multiple sides to figure things out and do certain things, and is really, really struggling. And there are also these privileged... I don't believe we have a POV. I think those are the 3 POVs. So we don't have a privileged... Ooh, no, there is at least one other POV. But those are the 3 main ones, are Tamis, Daniel, and Adamat. But there's also privileged, and they have their own kind of magic, and basically powder mages have the ability to manipulate, like, gunpowder and bullets and stuff like that. And like I said, it's all about this coup that has happened and kind of the fallout from that. And I actually really enjoyed getting to follow the journey. I am very curious as to what's going to happen in book 2. I have some theories. There is a certain character that I don't trust whatsoever, and I'm curious to see if I'm right about them. I'm very curious to see what happens. It's so hard because if I mention these things, they're like definitely spoilers, but like there's definitely some side characters whose futures I'm very, very, very curious about. Like, obviously we're going to find out, you know, the main characters, like their POVs. We know a lot about what happened to them, but there's a lot of side characters we meet through them who I'm very curious to see what happens to them in book 2 as well. So definitely we'll be reading that. I just don't know when. Maybe next month. We'll see. But I really enjoyed this, and I know that the Backlist Book Club basically weren't enjoying it, DNF'd it, and have moved on, but I'm glad they brought it to my radar because I had a fun time with it. And then what I believe is the last and final update, I'm kind of looking around to make sure I didn't miss anything, but the last and final update, as far as I can tell, is that I've read some more of The Last Argument of Kings. And I was not expecting to pick this book up, but I'm on page 376. I was on page 66 when this vlog started, because I hadn't picked it up since April? March? Something like that. But yeah, I'm now on page 376, and oh boy, are things coming together, because this is the 3rd book in the First Law trilogy, and wow. This is a very, very character-driven story. There is a plot, but like, you really have to get attached to the characters, because I think if you don't get attached to the characters and you don't care about what's going on with them, then you're going to struggle to stay invested in the story. And there's like a ton of POVs, and I don't even know how to explain it, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this kind of wraps up and where everything is going to lead, because I know there's other books that are like in this world, but I have no idea how they factor into the greater story. And I'm very curious. I was not expecting to read this book this month, or at least not this week. I was hoping to get to it this month, but not this week. But it is what called to me, so I picked it up, and I'm glad I did, because yeah, I really can't wait to get to the end. It's 593 pages, so I only have like a little over 200 pages to go, so hopefully I can get to that and wrap this up. So that's it for my update. This is an almost 20-minute clip, so I've been talking to you for like 20 minutes. I've read quite a bit. The only books I have left for the Spoonies Readathon are Read and Buried and Unmasking Autism, which I've already mentioned, and Pierced Peony, which I'm reading for Read a Book featuring a disability, mental health issue, invisibleness, etc. that you can relate to, or that you would like to know more about, and I am choosing to read that because the main character is autistic. Again, that's been all over my TBR for this readathon, whether intentional or not. And I'm really enjoying seeing all of this autistic rep in my reading. So very excited to be getting to that. Yeah, it's been a very, very, very successful week. And we needed to do self-care. I've napped. It's been a long week. I had a doctor's appointment Monday and I'm just wrung out because I had to go into a building and I don't do that. Like, honest to God, this is the first time, no, the second time because I did it for my blood work, but like my blood work and my doctor's appointment are literally the first 2 times I have been in a building where masks weren't required since before the pandemic started. And I mean, granted, I wasn't really taking that much of a risk because I went into the door and straight into the lab tech's office where the door closed behind us, and me and the lab tech were both masked. And I did the same thing at the doctor's office where I came in the front door and went immediately down to the hallway to the room where I was, you know, meeting with my doctor. And the nurse that dealt with me before the doctor came in and the doctor were both masked, as was I while I was in the room. So I didn't have to interact with anybody that was not wearing a mask, but it was still very, very stressful to be in a building because I don't feel safe or comfortable in buildings where masks aren't required. So that was a bit of a trip, and it left me feeling very wrung out. Also, my allergies are atrocious. Tree pollen and grass pollen are awful right now, and it's still been chilly enough, not today, but this week, where the heat has come on and I'm allergic to like dust and mold. And that is always an issue in the winter, is the dust that gets in the, you know, heat vents and any mold that could be present. And of course now pollen is in the heat vent, so the heat vent like blows the pollen up into the air. It's just lovely. So I took a nap. I'm tempted to take another one today because I'm feeling like, well, fresh roadkill. So I'm just very, very exhausted. So yeah, I've definitely checked off the self-care prompt because some of this reading is also self-care because I don't have energy to do anything else. So reading it is. So that's my update. Hopefully I can finish this, and then Pierced Peony. That's my main goal. If I squeeze in anything else, then that's fantastic. If I don't, then that's still quite the accomplishment for the rest of today, Saturday, and Sunday. So I would be happy with that. So that's going to be all for me now. I will probably wait till Sunday to check back in. And I think me and him are going to go read. What do you think, Bug? Yeah? Want to go read? Okay, we'll check back in with you soon. Bye! now Monday, which means it is time to wrap this week's vlog up. And I have quite the update because I have found my reading mojo somewhere. The first thing I want to mention is that I finished Killers of a Certain Age, but as this is a 5-star prediction, I will be talking about this in my 5-star prediction wrap-up, but I did want to let you know that I finished it. Then I had to read a book in a comfortable format, and I read and Buried for this because I was listening to the audiobook while reading along. And we have a cielo. And I'm giving this book 4.5 stars. This is the 5th or 6th book in the Lighthouse Library Mystery Series. And I think this one is my favorite that I've read. I really got into the mystery of it and was completely confused. Had no idea who had done it. Not a bit. I quite enjoyed the mystery aspect and trying to figure out who could have possibly committed this crime. So that will always raise my level on a cozy mystery. And yeah, it was just really fun seeing Lucy try to put the pieces together and then, you know, deal with the killer. I really, really liked how this book ended, and I'm very curious to see what happens in the next one with my little helper here. The last Spoonies prompt, no, there's 2 left. Sorry. I keep forgetting. There's so many prompts going around in my head right now. So one of the Spoonies prompts I had left was to research a disability, and I did that by reading Unmasking Autism by Devin Price, and I gave this book 5 stars. I found this really informative. I love seeing all of the ways being autistic can present in different people. I love that Devin went through and talked to a bunch of different people about how being autistic affects them and really lays things out in a very logical manner. And yeah, I feel like someday I will find my community of people who don't care about, well, any of the ways I don't fit into the neurotypical or normal, quote unquote, community. So yeah, I really enjoyed this read. I wish I could get my parents to read it, but I know they won't. Because I think they would understand better how I work. And my mom very much says, you were just a normal kid. And I'm going, I was very much not a normal kid. So yeah, I don't know if it's that she doesn't want me to be autistic or if it's more of a, she just refuses to see the ways in which I wasn't. And it is also combined with the fact that, I had my first panic attack when I was 8. So it is very possible that my anxiety disorder overshadowed it, and I have cat hair in my mouth. Thank you for that, Cielo. She's getting her fur everywhere. So helpful. She thought I needed a snack, apparently, of cat hair. So I really, really enjoyed the way this was laid out, and I'm glad that I picked it up for this readathon. And then the last book I finished is the long overdue The Last Argument of Kings. This is the 3rd and final book in the First Law trilogy. And I gave this book 4 stars. I quite enjoyed the conclusion. I liked that there were also some loose threads because I was wondering how things were going to play out in the subsequent books in this world. And yeah, it's interesting that there are I could see places where you could kind of go with things post the end of this book while also following different characters. So I definitely planned to continue on with this series at some point, though maybe not until the catch-up book club gets to that point, because I pulled these out of my TBR jar. So yeah, I guess we'll see. But I did enjoy how this one kind of progressed, and there were definitely some twists in here I was not expecting. So very excited to have finished this trilogy and looking forward to what comes next. The only other update I have is that I started Kingdom of the Wicked, which is the next book in the Skullduggery Pleasant series, and I am on page 160, so decent progress in this. I'm enjoying this. Val and Skullduggery are entertaining as ever, and I'm very curious to see what happens in this one and to continue on with the series. So all in all, a pretty successful week, if I do say so myself. I'm just realizing I forgot a book. Pierced Peony. This is what happens when I read ebooks or own ebooks or have anything to do with ebooks. I forget that I have them. Do you have to chew on me? I'm not a chew toy. So Pierced Peony, which is the second book in the Mott's Cold Case Mystery Series. And I read this for read a book with a disability, mental health issue, invisible illness that you can relate to. And our main character is autistic. Hi. And I gave this book 4.25 stars. This was another one where I had absolutely no idea who the killer was. And the person that I thought was the killer was not the killer. So way off base there. They definitely stumped me. I really enjoy getting to see Mott's kind of POV and how she navigates the world, given that she sees things differently. And it is interesting to see her putting together the pieces of this crime. Well, again, seeing the world through a different lens. And I also like that Mott's being autistic presents in different ways than mine would, and different ways than some of the people Devin mentioned in his book. So I really, really enjoyed kind of seeing that perspective, especially given all of the different books I've read this week that have featured autistic characters or autistic people. So really, really enjoyed that. So yeah, I think I've got everything now. I don't think I've left anything out. So yeah, that's it for my Spoonies vlog. And I managed to get through all of my Spoonies TBR along with a few extras, which was the main goal. So I'm going to wrap this up here. All of my social media is linked in the description below if you'd like to come chat with me. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me spoon emojis. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!